Wonder of the innovative mind. I mean, innovation and everything that goes on in our mind is a wonder in itself for most of us. And so I have to deeply apologize. I will probably kill that wonder, demystify innovation, and come up with a concept that you will think, okay, then we all can do that. And that is one of the things we try to do. And this is pretty new. So you will not find a lot in the internet yet, but we found ways that everybody with a brain can actually innovate. And that's a funny one. So you could innovate anytime. And this is something which is very hard to believe because innovation has a lot to do with creative ideas. And creative ideas are understood as popping up just irregularly. It just, I have this great idea in this very moment. But you will see that our brain is actually producing ideas all day long. We sometimes don't even know, but there are a couple things that we will discover today. So let me make a test with you. So create whatever you like by thinking of a platypus and some lexicrypt as a basis. And I'll give you a precious half minute to think about. Create something with a platypus and a lexicrypt. Let your fantasy go, let your creative go, let your mind go wander and create something in your mind, a picture, a thing in your imagination right now. Can you think of something? It's darn hard, isn't it? Many of you don't know what a platypus is. Some do. And it's even more complicated what a lexicrypt is. So you will notice in this very moment that you cannot come up with something. And that is a base understanding of how our brain actually works. You don't need to be a neuroscientist to realize that creativity has actually its boundaries that we humans cannot cross. So when I was working in our foundation, helping startups around the world in Southeast Asia and Southern Sahara Africa, to become more innovative and keep up with the rest of the world and become entrepreneurs at building companies and actually helping grow prosperity in these countries, we realized that it's actually pretty difficult to transform the concept of innovation. And a couple of years ago, somebody asked me very direct, Axel, we know we need to innovate. Help me. How do I innovate? Step by step. And that was a question I actually couldn't answer. I mean, I founded 4 companies, all innovative, 2 with disruptive business model, putting, former big leaders actually sort of into a corner. But I couldn't answer how I innovate. And so I asked other people if they could tell me how they innovated. I mean, we all have peers. And so I asked fellow CEOs from innovative companies. And they came all up with the same thing. Think out of the box. Think big. Think bold. Think new. Whatever. But the question remains, how do you do that? How do you think out of the box? Is this the box? And how do you think there? We all didn't really know. So my first company was Computer 2000. We started with $15,000 and wanted to change the mechanism of distribution, which everybody told me is a completely idiotic idea because distribution is a 5,000-year-old business and there are millions and millions and millions partners and distributors and supply chains and so on around the world. I cannot change this. I still tried. I found a disruptive business model, bypassed 8,000 of the biggest distributor competitor in the tech space, and we became number 3 in the world. 10 years later, a multi-billion-dollar company. So how was this possible? And I have to be honest, I didn't know. When I stepped out of this company, I moved to Silicon Valley, started a new company because I had a new idea, Blue Roads. And also here, 5 years into it, 50% of the Fortune 500 tech companies were actually using our product. We became a market leader, and we had 2 major competitors when we started. They were so big that no investor wanted to invest in us because they said, you don't have any chance to win this game. A disruptive business model and a disruptive technology together got us there. Question remains, how do we innovate? How is it possible to run a $15,000 startup and run it in a multi-billion-dollar company? And I, as the founder and the one who had these ideas, I did not know how. But working with startups and everybody asking me, so how is this possible? How do we do that? I mean, I realized it's actually all in the brain. So the brain must have done something that I don't even know about or not recognized. And so my wife and I would discuss this on and off and on and off, and she asked me all kinds of questions. And I realized there is a certain pattern of innovation. And you'll find this pattern of innovation in books. You'll find that there is correlation between one and the other events. There's all kinds of backgrounds. There's problems we identified. The problems have become bigger and bigger and bigger. And the brain actually looks into situations that it finds possible solutions. But funny enough, innovation is the furthest out in this process, because what our brain does is looking for innovative ideas. I mean, literally, in the very moment where you have the problem and in solving this problem, you will find ideas, or actually the brain finds it for you, but they are not really innovative and they're far off disruptive because it must be very fast. So one of the reasons is that, you know, if you're like 300,000 years ago when we still already had a brain, you know, everything, I mean, a wild animal comes or a stupid situation or all of a sudden a flood, we had to have an innovative idea or an idea right away. We couldn't say we develop something. Oh, here's a tiger. Let me think. Maybe I create something that will do this and this. And, you know, you kind of sit there and envision something. I mean, it will be eaten by then. So the brain is producing instant great ideas, but most of them are so under pressure that they are not innovative. So we had to find out. And we were thinking about what else is in this space which has changed a lot. And by accident, or by, you will learn later why, we came to athletes. You know, look at these athletes skiing here in this world. I mean, unthinkable about 100 years ago. Look at this guy. So he climbs up a rock in the 1950s, 7 to 10 days until he was up. Now look at this today. Climber get up the same mountain, you know, in this case, it was Half Dome in California, in 2 hours and 20 minutes instead of 7 to 10 days. This is just a time frame of 50 years. So something must have happened. Skier 1950, look at this guy. I mean, completely balanced, looks very cool, goes down the mountain much faster than anybody else before. Well, this guy, you know, he's driving his motorbike, you know, freestanding, sort of very proud that he could manage this. Yeah, this was pretty cool in 1950s. Today, I mean, an unimaginable transformation. What was such a transition possible and how? Biological evolution in 50 years? No way. So there was something that people, humans, actually understood to do to get to that point. And that was athletes totally understand their body in a fundamentally different way than they did before. It was not evolution, it was we understanding something that we had no clue how it actually really works, other than muscle training and so on. But you know, the way we deal today with training, I learned it actually from my son. He said, you know, you can train a single muscle. Poof, how do I do that? Well, they know. So there was something we learned, again, from a different area. We learned something that we can actually use in our brain research, so to speak, rethinking innovation. So we need to start and know our brain very much like they know their body. We need to understand the terrain, meaning the market, very much like these athletes know their terrain, how they move around and so forth. And we need to get greater equipment and training in order to actually maximize our innovation power, which we have already. Every single human on earth is innovative. We just didn't know. Like every single person who is kind of sporty can actually do these jumps and these tracks and everything like that without they didn't know 50 years ago. So let's start with the brain. There's a shocking realization. Homo sapiens is not able to create anything. Whoa. We think we're creative, and now we should learn we're not creative. It is shocking, and we had hundreds of debates, and people try, now look at this, or look at that. Look at Dolly, you know, the elephants with the tiny legs and the clock that hangs around this tree branch. I mean, what an innovative or what creative picture. But guess what? It's still an elephant. This elephant has still legs. The clock is still a clock. It's just shaping a little bit different. There is not a single piece in any of these pictures that is actually creative in form of a creation. Musicians, for whatever reason, and nobody could answer this to me, they created a new piece of music. They all say composing. And that's one of the tricks. This is exactly what our brain does. These 80 billion neurons and these trillions of synapses compose ideas from existing ideas. So any new idea is a composition of previous impressions and experiences. Now let me go back to the test. You couldn't come up, most likely, and I would be shocked if you could, with a creative idea using a platypus and Lexicrypt. Those who know what a platypus is, which is actually a funny little animal, they could start there, but Lexicrypt, you could not do anything around Lexicrypt because you never in your life, none of you had an experience with Lexicrypt, because Lexicrypt actually doesn't exist. It's a made-up word. But even this creative made-up word is made of existing things, letters, L, A, X, and so forth. So the realization that we're not creative might be extremely shocking for all of you. It was shocking for me. And it was a scientist from California, from Stanford University, Dr. David Eagleman, who actually postulated that we're not creative. Boom. Okay, so is this the end of innovation? No. Funny enough, it's the beginning. So two amazing discoveries that we actually came up with once we discussed this over and over and over with neuroscientists, with entrepreneurs, with innovators, a fundamental change in our thinking. There was this wonderful saying, you know, whatever you can imagine, you can make. Well, now it's actually scientifically proven, because all of the parts we imagine are from existing situations. So our composition of the imagination is based on something real that already exists. So the likelihood that we can make it is extremely high. There's almost nothing. There's a few things that we may not be able to invent tomorrow morning, but most of the things we can do, at least in our lifetime, and there's just a tiny few that may take a little bit longer. Because everything everybody ever created was basically a composition from two or three or many things that existed. Then this new thing was an innovation based on existing things, but it became part of existence. And so we step by step, I mean, slowly but carefully, we move up the ladder. And the second part is equally interesting, that everybody can create amazing ideas, because the brain does this every time and every day. What we need to learn is two things. One is we need past experiences, and we need to simply compose it. And there's something else that is hindering us, and this is very funny. It's our culture. No, don't think that. No, don't even try it before you do it. Don't even talk to me about this. This is crazy. You know, there's a million reasons why you should not be innovative. But this has nothing to do that we cannot be there. It has to do with our culture. So now when we go into this whole world of how this thing up there, this 3 pound of masses works, there are 3 things about innovation that we come up with or realized and we developed that has huge implications once we know that. So we have the logical and the creative mind. And the creative mind is basically the compositive mind that composes things, and the logical checks whether this is all okay. And this goes between the 2 brain halves in nanoseconds. So this is like speed of light. And there are roughly 100 billion connections, neurons, synapses, and so forth involved in this transformation. So now our brain is trained for 300,000 years to come up with a solution like that before the tiger eats us. But innovation, there is no time pressure. We need to get a solution maybe in a half a year or a year, typically faster, but most of the time we have actually some time. And our brain is not conditioned to do that. This request to our brain is about 20 to 50 years old versus 5 million years that the brain in a human exists. So we have to trick it a little bit, but the brain is also a simple mechanism. It is far not as complicated as we think. The mechanism seems physically difficult, but the behavior is actually pretty similar. So we cannot innovate at all without experience. This is an important learning. So executives without experience will need to block the innovation. So we can say, okay, is this executives are the bad guys? No, it's us who tell them exactly what we want to do and bring them into this experience. But nobody has the bolts to do that. So if we tell an executive, do something with Lexicrypt, and he said, come on, I mean, I don't know it, I couldn't find it even, forget it, doesn't exist. Well, assuming that you know something about it, then you need to actually help them understand, because only if they have the experience, they can deal with it. A big display in a car, like in a Tesla, this is foreign for every executive in any car manufacturer on earth. So they say, no, this is a disruption. This is a distraction. This is bad. You know, you should drive and not look down to the, I mean, just a second looking down, you know, you're already passing by 30 to 50 meters on the Autobahn. So with all that said, you know, this is part of the innovative process. Our brain filters associations to be more effective. So this is why these crazy ideas cannot move over fast enough like we want to do it. This is something we can train our brain. And multidiscipline collaboration is the best food for thought, you know, like salespeople, marketing people, finance people, and engineers. But what we do today is the opposite. A research and development center is only engineers or only physicists or only experts of something. So we need to rethink innovation. But the good news is we can do that. We are composed of things, and so are our ideas. They are composed, even though they are virtual things, but they're composed of something that already existed. Which means when we work on this, I mean, just like 3 months, we come to amazingly innovative ideas. And funny enough, everybody can do that. So this is a fundamental change in the way our mind works. And so getting to top performance, we need to rethink thinking and work with our teams, work with our careers, work with our people who are in careers, work basically with everybody. And we will come to something, the more we do that, which is actually fantastic. There was a test where people should put some sticks and some kind of cookie on top of the sticks and build basically a sort of a pyramid. There was intelligent people, less intelligent people, there were worker class, there were all kinds of groups to perform that test. The smartest of the smartest were not the winners. Guess who were the winner? Kindergarten children. Because they are innovative by birth. We just kill it over time by saying, you know, don't do this, don't be so loud, don't cry, don't do here, don't do there. until they finally don't do all these crazy things and become, disciplined human beings, almost lemmings in a row. So imagine that this guy, AlphaGo, you probably heard of it, this computer that plays this board game Go better than any human, which was thought to be impossible. And maybe Alexa, the Amazon little thing in your loudspeakers. When they begin to talk to each other, this is a new power that comes into our world. And our world's future degree of automation is sooner or later 99.5%. But there's one thing any human can do, is creative, innovative thinking. And this is what will bring us forward. So to sum it up, there are 4 key tools to innovate. Number 1, experience. Wherever you can find any new experience, let it in. Deep innovation design. So we need to know how our brain works, and then we can develop techniques to overcome barriers that exist in our actually ancient brain. Then know the people who we innovate for. We cannot innovate just randomly. If we know who we want to help with something, then innovation is far easier, because then our neurons and synapses fire on exactly that solution and not on, oh, I have a random idea. And last but not least, tools and training to get there. So wander off? No. The innovative mind, we can train and we can build equipment making the same advancement as our athletes. And this is what I am trying to embrace, because it makes us far more human than we ever have been in the last couple hundred years. Thank you.